Good evening. This is John Warren, publisher of the San Diego Voice and Viewpoint newspaper, coming to you with our program From the Desk of the Editor. Each week, we try to provide an opportunity for dialogue with you. We welcome your questions, your comments, the interaction that we can have. The slogan for the Voice and Viewpoint is that a people without a voice cannot be heard. And so we have enjoyed being the voice of this community for some 67 years. And we are excited as we go forward that we are expanding and updating to reach a changing environment. I'm joined this evening by Dr. Leonard Thompson III. And Dr. Thompson, with GOD Radio, as we partner to do outreach, we want you to know that both of us as a team are here to serve the community and to help make your voices and your views known. And so we welcome this opportunity, and I'll let Dr. Thompson bring you up to date in terms of our various platforms.
Well, good evening, everyone. We are on several platforms today. We're on personally our Facebook page, GOD Radio, Voice and Viewpoint, as well as streaming on demand on LinkedIn, on the Dr. Leonard Thompson page, on YouTube at GOD Radio, and on Instagram at GOD Radio 1. So you can also hear us on our website as well as our app. And so we want to invite everyone out tonight to put your questions in the feed of your social media platforms and let us know if you're on your app. You can actually still send in your questions, and we'll be able to get those in right away. Good evening again to you all. Dr. Warren, back to you.
Okay. There's a great deal for us to talk about this evening. You know, I said a few weeks ago that we were going to devote a tremendous amount of time to preparing for the midterm general election on November 3rd. Primaries are still being held around the country. Yesterday, there was a very interesting primary in the state of Florida. And in Florida, in the Democratic primary, there was a gentleman that a lot of us had come to know from the first Trump term, because he and his twin brother, I believe they were either Russian born or came here very young. They both rose to the ranks of being officers in the military. And Vindman was a whistleblower and caught a lot of flack because he spoke up about things that were happening. And he was running against Sister Dixon in Florida. And he was favored to win this primary, outspent the sister by some 20-1. She was already a Democratic member of the state legislature. And so she won this primary race. And she was a progressive Democrat, which also raises that flag again. But so important is the fact that we are winning these races. And in the midst of it, people are crossing over from party labels are becoming less important, and they're looking more at the individuals that are running. And so she ran in a district that had been redesigned, and yet it couldn't have taken place without some Republicans and independents voting for her in this primary. And she was running as a progressive Democrat. We don't have much of those issues here on the West Coast because California is a blue state, meaning it's democratically dominated in the state legislature, the governor's office. Well, we do know that we have Steve Hilton, a Republican, running for governor, and that he is a Trump supporter. We do know that we have what's his name? Jim, I think it's Nelson, North County. It'll come to me in a moment. He's running for Congress against Marnie Wilper, who is also a member of the city council, an attorney, and a person who chairs the Public Safety Committee, which is over the CPP, the Citizens uh, Police Practices Commission, which is supposed to now have independent counsel, which it does not have. So we have a lot of things going on as we are winding through the summer and people are coming off of their vacations. And I have an editorial this week, Dr. Thompson, that I would like to read, and I would encourage others to read. It's both online and in print. And it deals with the whole concept of voting. Tonight, we're going to talk further about propositions, but I want to share this particular editorial because discussion of candidates and measures on the ballot mean nothing if the people are not galvanized to get involved and to participate. So here's this editorial that we have for this week: Why We Must Vote. As the summer comes near an end, usually marked by Labor Day, political candidates and activities will increase. Many of us who are already tired of hearing about the coming midterm elections will begin to tune out for a variety of reasons. Some have never voted and don't think their votes make a difference. Some are busy working multiple jobs, struggling with bills like food, housing, and gas, all of which have increased greatly in cost and show no signs of letting up. If you have housing, health care, or food supplement assistance, prepare for it to disappear if it has not already. To date, there are now more than 26 billion Americans without health care insurance, and the numbers will increase. Local hospitals are closing with no plans to replace their services, and many of the jobs that some think are secure could soon go away. The answer to all of this is your vote. Who you vote for is secondary to the fact that you need to vote. If you do your homework, your vote could keep more people who support Donald Trump out of office. Your vote here in California can ensure that a Trump supporter like Steve Hilton does not become governor of this state. That issue is greater than your disagreement with the Democratic alternative. Your vote can ensure that a Republican like Jim Desmond, and that's the name I was trying to remember, who is a Trump supporter, does not get elected to a Congress that already refuses to exercise its oath of office against Trump's abuse of the Constitution. Your vote could put in office another person who will take action against the Trump agenda and open the doors to recovering our economy and way of life now under attack by Trump and his supporters. Your vote must take the long view, both of the past and the future. The past involves remembering the sacrifices, berating, and beatings and deaths of so many who thought our right to vote was worth dying for. The future involves voting for people who will restore and improve our current way of life. Just consider if we were not mobilizing the vote to bring an end to the Trump era, he and the Republicans would not be working harder at blocking our votes than presenting answers to our economic problems as a means of getting our votes. Their reality is, and I stress this, if we can stop or limit the vote, we can continue things as they are. Let's get registered and prepared to vote by November 3rd. We will know who to vote for if we don't already. This is something that we must do. And so I mentioned the things we could lose tonight because it's too late once they're gone to start saying what happened to my food supplement, what happened to my housing, what happened to the hospital that's closed. None of these things are of any concern to Donald Trump and a handful of people who lockstep support him as they believe that their numbers can outlast those of us who outnumber them, but so far refuse to outvote them. So, Dr. Thompson, I just wanted to put that there. It's going to be online. I want it's for those people who don't think they need to vote,
Mhm.
and hopefully they will look at this and they will give some thought to what they have already lost.
Mhm.
Just look at gas. The prices are still going up. There's no solution in sight. Our stockpiles are being depleted.
Mhm.
Our exposure for attack is increasing as we are stripping away the safeguards that we have as a nation. We don't know how many of our enemies are plotting to come together. Our troops are being demoralized when we look at what's happened to the people on the Abraham Lincoln aircraft carrier, 5,000 people, 9 months at sea, no port calls. And when Trump is questioned about the food and the treatment and how long they've been out, because all of the places they normally would go are under attack from Iran,
Mhm.
his attitude was casually, they haven't been out long enough.
Exactly.
And so this is very serious. And I think, in a way, a lot of this is good because it's letting people see up close and personal before November 3rd how little Donald Trump really cares about anybody other than himself.
Well, also, Dr. Warren, several things are happening. For the first time ever in the history of the United States, we are over $40 trillion in debt. And they added Biden's name to the Trump Biden era. But the reality is that it's actually the Trump era. More debt deficit has been added since he's been president in both his presidencies. And again, useless, needless spending, all to deal with his ego as well as his narcissism. One of the biggest things I think that more than anything else is that he is not representing the country. He is representing the interests of his family. He is representing the interests of the wealthy. And even in that case, he has no loyalty to anyone. I just look currently that his son-in-law's brother just bought the Lakers, and you wonder why they have so much increased money to spend $12 billion on a sports team. And they're going all over it, and everybody who's tied to this clandestineness of a president is doing well, but also his loyalty is only until you have to call him on the carpet. And the minute that you don't agree with him, he will throw you to the wolves and talk about you. So he is a very, what I would say, self-serving individual, and he is using the bank account and the prestige of the United States to get everything that he wants. And the midterm elections could be where we stop it and we say, grow up, and we say, not on our watch. Right now, the watchmen that are in the legislature, in the Senate, are pretty much letting the chickens be ate up by the wolves, and the wolves now are in running the chicken house.
Yeah, the foxes are in the hen house, as
Yeah.
they say,
Yeah.
Dr. Thompson. There's
So
no
see,
question.
you got to forgive me. My city, that was my city boy coming out. And instead of calling it a fox, I done called it a wolf.
Yeah,
But either way it goes, there's
yeah,
something in the hen house that ain't supposed to be
yeah,
there.
this is true. And it's having a field day with the chickens,
Mhm.
killing and eating them up. And so this is very, very true. I think that your assessment is right. I think that also we are well on our way to the changes that you're talking about. Um, Keisha Bottoms is doing well in her bid to become first woman, black woman governor of the state of Georgia. We got to have Georgia, and Trump's had some wins. But uh, if we get out and vote, we can make a difference in terms of what's taking place. And it's not that the Democrats have been the answer. The Democrats, like the Republicans, take us for granted. They really have no respect for us, and they don't care. And so we're not telling people to vote Democratic because we like Democrats. When I look at Marnie running for the seat that Darrell Issa had after we did Prop 50 last November and opened up the possibility of 5 more congressional seats that could be flipped to Democratic to help us get the numbers we need to regain control of the House. That district has part of the northern part of San Diego County. It has a portion of Orange County, and it has a portion of Palm Springs, which is crazy, reaching all the way over there. And so some people here, as you know, you weren't there, but on our Black Men and Women United call this past week, a few days ago, we had much concern expressed about how the citizens policy and practices, police policy practices commission has not selected an independent counsel that it now has the authority to do as we move beyond just tokenism in terms of looking at police complaints. And Marnie Wilpert is a attorney and she chairs public safety.
Mhm.
And so there's no reason why she should not be doing more. And I have indicated that although we need her more than Jim Desmond in Congress to help flip the House back, that we still can't just let it be a cakewalk. And
Mhm.
when we say flip the House, you know, the numbers, we were like 5 to 7 members short of having what we needed to take control of the House. And members have quit, died, gone out, and changes are taking place. But we need a majority. And even though Jeffries now stands to be Speaker of the House, it's quite possible with a Democratic majority and the growing activity of the progressive Democrats within the party that someone else could end up being Speaker. We might have OAC as Speaker
Mhm.
instead of Jeffries, because there's much dissatisfaction with how the old guard has been doing business. So I wrote this editorial for those of us here. I also shared it with some 200 papers and Black media outlets around the country so that people can modify it. Because when people can look at their table, you can look at your wallet when you're at the gas station. You can look at your children's lack of a lunch or the hospital needs. Those things are directly tied to the policies that Trump has implemented under Project 2025.
Mhm.
And we have lost so much, and not just in terms of prestige, but we have been so greatly endangered. We normally have supported Taiwan in their military exercises um, in order to
South Korea.
appease China.
Okay. Mhm.
Uh, Trump has pulled our troops back in that activity, which is
Mhm.
crazy. He's buttering up to North Korea
Mhm.
and turning his back on the military exercises with South Korea when South Korea is one of our strongest and biggest partners. And so, you know, all over the place, we're just being exposed, and we're collapsing from within
Mhm.
because we have a fool in charge.
Well, you know, one of the things, Dr. Warren, we have in the United States the fear of the single story. Every time somebody disagrees with the current leader, he gives his own narration of what he wants everybody to hear. We didn't continue to exercise this because they didn't join us in the Iraq War. They said no, thank you. So we're saying no, thank you. Again, that's a single story. We never heard anything from them. We're only hearing from him. He always has a way of twisting things in his favor, but not in the favor of this country. And the reason why we must be active now, activate now, not wait just for the midterm elections, but we need to get friends. And if we could get everybody who is really concerned about the country to say, I got 5 on it. I mean, I'm going to get 5 people that are unregistered and get them out and get them registered and get them to vote and let them understand the plight that we're facing right now. I think that for a lot of Americans, we're in la la land because we have not seen a physical attack on our soil other than, you know, the 9/11 and some other things that have been foiled. But we have not really seen war hit our soil in most of our lifetime. And because of that, we think that we are immune from being attacked, from being vulnerable. And now the attacks are so much more deeper. They don't have to be just air raids and bombs. They could be cyber. They can be chemical. They could be even sonic waves now. So there's so many ways that we can be under attack and attacked. And to go out and have a leader that for every time he literally is the bully of the world now, and making the United States feel like the bully of the world. And then he will say stuff that makes no sense. It's like the military has been out for 9 months and everything. What do you think about that? They ain't been out long enough. And you look at them like, wow, how insensitive. Now, if that was your child, if that was your family that was experiencing that, how would you feel?
But he has never been in support of the military. You know, this is the man that made fun of Senator John McCain, who was a celebrated war hero. All right. And Senator McCain during the Vietnam War, remember when they understood who he was, they offered to release him. And he insisted on being in prison as long as his fellow Americans were in prison. And he spent 6 to 7 years as a prisoner of war.
Mhm.
Trump made fun of that. Trump has no respect for the military. And one of the good things today is he's talking about people are okay, but we have reports from people's family and loved ones since the internet is great and people can share live communication as opposed to just waiting for a mail drop. It used to be in years gone by that if someone was in the military and at sea, if you wrote a letter, you would send it to APO San Francisco, and then the military would sort it out and send it wherever it was going to go.
Mhm.
Okay. And so we got an idea of how the mail thing used to be when we looked at the 666 movie with the women who sorted out all of that mail that had been stacked up and people hadn't received. And so these family members have told us that the toilets aren't working, the water is bad, there's mold, the food is rationed, and all these things that are wrong. And he right down to a shell of jumping off the ship out of frustration.
Mhm.
These things should not be. And just for the record, in years past, because I'm Army, I was never Navy, but in years past, when we had long deployments, okay, in San Diego, they used to call it Westpac,
Mhm.
and people would be out about 6 months at a time. And what they had to do is, if for any reason the deployment was extended, we would take a port like Hawaii, and that's where we would refuel. And if necessary, we would fly in replacement crews and fly out the crew members that had been there for the 6 months duration. And it
Mhm.
was like a plane changing, staff while passengers are at a stopover.
Mhm.
So we know that we don't have any of that happening today because we have fools in charge of the Pentagon.
Mhm.
Hesep has no idea what he's doing, none whatsoever. Trump could care less. Um, he's firing senior military people right and left. So we're depleting the institutional experience that we have to keep America safe. And the only question is, if we get through November, can we make it to January in terms of the swearing in?
Mhm.
And the states now are preparing, many of our states are preparing contingencies because they anticipate that Trump will try to pull the military to stop the election
Mhm.
once it starts and to keep in power and to maintain control. And so these things should not be. And I'm hoping that you're paying attention. This is not all we want to talk about tonight, folks,
Mhm.
but this has certainly got to be a main topic. We still have voter registration cards at the Voice and Viewpoint. We still have time to plan for people who need a ride, need to know where their voting is going to take place. There's still time for that. And on September 10th, I'm having voters night at Voice and Viewpoint. It'll be a chance to talk about elections and a chance to hear candidates if they stop by. All of this is geared to take advantage of the next 8 weeks that we have, 7 or 8 weeks, so that when we do have to vote, and voting will start, the ballots will be mailed out on October 5th, and people will start early voting. And so it's not like you have to wait. And we want to get started, and
Mhm.
we would love to hear from you. Do you think we're giving too much attention to it? Are you mad about it? Are you encouraged? Are you energized? Are you helped? And in a moment, I will start talking again about some of the propositions that you're going to be seeing and how we can help make a difference. Dr. Thompson.
Well, Dr. Warren, I think that people are looking forward to tune in. I know that you're going to cover several props tonight, and so I think that we should just go ahead and get with it and start, like I say, classes in session. Get your notes out and let's go.
Well, what we have in terms of propositions, I like what happened with the California Democrats. The executive committee of the California Democrats met here in San Diego recently. I think it was the 31st through the 2nd or 1st or whatever it was. And what happened with that meeting is that they looked at all of the statewide ballot measures that we have, okay? And those ballot measures ended up being 14 in number. 8 of them they agreed with, and 6 they disagreed with. Last week, I started with the biggest one that they disagreed with was Proposition 39. And Proposition 39 was important because 39 represented, through Carl DeMaio, assembly member from San Diego, an effort to put a measure before the people that would achieve the same thing as Donald Trump's Safe Vote Act. And all that said was that we're going to control the election. We're not going to let you be as free as you want to. We're going to impose new registration requirements. No longer can you just show your driver's license or your passport. We want additional documentation and state ID and the kind of things that many older people will not have, number one, the kind of ID that will impact many women in our state because your name was one thing when you were single, and now you might have married, divorced, remarried. So your name has changed a couple of times. And I've had people coming to the Voice and Viewpoint to do name changes. I had one lady recently who came because she had all these documents in one name, and then she had married, and now she wanted to hyphenate and have the new name there. And so, the women change their names, but the men don't change theirs in terms of marriage. And so that gets to be a real issue. I dealt with that personally when Sister Dolores and I married, because she had established herself as Dolores Van Rensselaer with her business interests and all the things she's done on the East and West Coast. We did not try to change her name. And that's, so Warren became hyphenated. It also reminded me of my late friend, Gloria Penna at KPBS, because Gloria had built her media career as Gloria Penna, and yet her husband, when she remarried, his name is Snyder. So she was always Gloria Penna professionally, but Gloria Snyder in terms of her husband. And so with the DeMaio stuff, it would create a big enough cloud for some people to be turned away from the opportunity to vote. And so that's why we started off giving time and attention. And all we need to know is, and I shared with you last week, that the Attorney General changed the naming on the ballot, because the way they had listed the name on the ballot, they gave you the impression that the ballot was voter good, and it was not voter good. And so they changed it so people would know that it would create some questions. And so the main thing we need to know with these ballot measures, as I'm going to be walking through them, and we're going to be doing them again in person when we put up the ballots on the big screen at the Voice and Viewpoint, is have you understand what you say, which a ballot is a yes and which is a no, but you get to choose what's yes or no. We don't choose yes or no for you, okay? And so the ballots that were on this list that I was concerned about us voting against, last week we dealt with 39. This week, I want to mention Proposition 41, because these are 2 of the 6 ballots that we are concerned about, and we want to make sure that we vote against. and they will probably have a lot of money sending slick stuff in the mail to you. Proposition 41, which is the second one, requires audits of programs funded by new state special taxes, prohibits new state taxes that are excluded from existing voter approved state spending limit, initiative constitutional amendment. Okay, so for statewide special taxes would require one, a pre-election audit of programs that would receive funding. All of these kind of measures slow the process. You already know uh, most of us don't need a tax credit. Most of us, if we have a chance to apply for funding, we want to have a simple procedure and we want to be able to go and get the funding based on that procedure. We don't need it to be bogged down with all of these things. And so audits take time. And it's always interesting that as far as I can remember back some 50 years, the Republicans, they were not as bold as Trump is in terms of change. In past Republicans presidential elections, Nixon, Reagan, these people that ran and got elected, they did simple things like they changed the eligibility requirements in the regulations so that not as many people could apply and be accepted. Okay, they cut the amount of money that was available. One of my favorite examples of this is what they did with both legal services under the Economic Opportunity Act and also Job Corps. These were two of the most important things that came out of the Great Society that Lyndon Johnson pushed in honor of John Kennedy. And so what happened in terms of the Job Corps program, in the initial Job Corps as it was written, if a young person in San Diego applied to Job Corps, more than likely when accepted, they would be sent to a Job Corps facility either in Washington State or on the East Coast, but they would be geographically relocated to a different environment. And the whole idea was that in addition to whatever training they were going to have, whether it was automotive, electric, bricklaying, whatever skills they were learning in Job Corps, they were going to be in a different environment so that when they came out of the program, they would not necessarily just be returning to where they came from. Very important. Okay, so the Republicans eliminated that whole process, cut the number of facilities that were available, cut the dollars that were available, and at the end result is the programs were not functioning as intended. I want you to know, as far back as I can remember, every time, and Dr. Thompson, you raised this question tonight, every time we ever had a Republican president, the national debt has gone up because of the efforts to give money to the wealthy and to cut services and benefits to those who need it. The Republican concept is not one concerned about the needs of people in terms of making things even. Their whole idea of government was that government was there to serve business. It was never intended to serve people. And we've had enough people come to office that changed that so that we got things passed like the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments that gave status to us. We got things like the women's right to vote that put women on a par. And so we now have women doing all kinds of things, including the recent sister that was the vice president of the United States. So these are things that we have to be concerned about. And so in rather than get bogged down in Prop 41, just make a note. I'm suggesting that you make a note to vote against it. And that will make some sense, okay? Now, Prop 42 will prohibit new state personal property taxes and certain retroactive state taxes, okay? This is intended to be another constitutional amendment. Remember this, folks, and I was trying to share last 2 weeks ago how we get to propositions, how we go from interest groups to pressure groups. Pressure groups design or develop policy. Then they get people to carry that policy in the legislature. They end up hiring lobbyists and getting the language that they want written, and then they push to get it passed. And so this is what's happening. When you do the proposition approach, you have the ability to get a certain number of signatures, and a certain number of signatures are considered a reflection of the will of the people. Remember, the proposition approach is an additional safety valve. The whole concept of representative government is that the people that we elect, they should pass the legislation that we want passed. But since they get bogged down with the lobbyists and the money and stuff, this becomes an alternative means of getting through the maze and getting stuff on the books. So I hope that's helpful. Dr. Thompson, do you have any questions, comments from anyone as we move through this?
No, we're doing really good, Dr. Warren. We're actually putting up the propositions as you begin to talk about them, so that people can see them and really just know how that's going. So you just finished Proposition 42, and you started off with Proposition 41. People, like I said, our class is in session, and so people are listening and paying close attention.
Well, these things, these propositions 41 and 42 can be very tricky. But the thing that you will see at the end of the description, and it's going to be a little booklet that's going to come to you from the legislative office of the state, and it's going to carry each proposition, and it's going to carry statements for and against. So it'll be pros and cons and brief statements. And they won't necessarily answer all your questions, but I'm going to be trying to carry you a little bit further so that you understand, which is so important. Many times, if you can't figure out where you stand on one of these things based on the way it's written, that's a good indicator that you should vote against it. You should not be voting for anything that you disagree with. All right. Now, it's very interesting also. Recently, a group put out the voting record of members of the legislature. And David Alvarez, who is an assembly member from California, and he represents portions, I believe, of the South Bay in the assembly. David Alvarez carries a record for having missed the most votes of any member of the state assembly, or having the most no votes. Let me just put it that way. He had over 400 no votes. Now, here's the trick. When a measure comes up for a vote, if the member does not vote, is not on the floor to vote for the measure, then the measure is considered their non-answer is considered a no vote. And so Alvarez's response to that was that, well, he's trying very hard to get a university in the South Bay, which would in effect convert Southwestern College to a university, and that's required him to be away a great deal. I find that very interesting because as a political scientist, over the years that I've studied state and local government, they have a provision in most jurisdictions and most states that deals with malfeasance in office. And just because people get elected, it does not mean that they have a license to vote when they want to or not vote. The people still respect accountability. And we saw that recently with Senator McConnell, because he had dropped off the radar for some 2 months and is not representing the people of Kentucky. And questions were being raised, whether he was conscious, comatose, or what. And he took a couple of stage pictures with his wife, and he supposedly went home, but he still hasn't been on the floor to vote. Now, I can tell you from a historical standpoint, when people like Adam Clayton Powell out of New York, one of the few people in the history of the Congress to be expelled, a black man, if you will, chaired the most powerful committee in the 89th Congress of his day, in the 89th and 90th Congress, who in a 6-year period got over 60 major pieces of legislation passed. Some of it included such things as Medicare, which we have today. Didn't know that, did you? That Medicare was passed in the 60s. And when Medicare was being debated in the House, I remember Republican members of Congress did not want Medicare because at the same time we were looking at Medicare, we were looking at uh, domestic help, people working in folks' homes being given Social Security and taxes and all of the benefits that they would get if they were working someplace else. And I remember specifically sitting in meetings where some of those Republican members said uh, they thought it was off the record in executive session. Well, I can't vote for it because my wife doesn't want the maid to get uh, Social Security benefits, and we don't think they should get it. Well, if you ever saw the movie The Help, you got a very good picture of what kind of conditions people worked under. And if you came out of my family, you saw my wife, my mother was a domestic who worked for $1 an hour, $8 a day in bus fare, and had to travel on those ungodly buses to those neighborhoods and wear those little outfits just so we could make sure that we ate. And so here we have those things that we all are benefiting from. Social Security, let's not forget that, because without Social Security, so many of us would not have anything at all to go on. Okay. And Medicare is also supplemented in the state of California by Medi-Cal. And so uh, be careful of the Republicans arguing about socialism and social democrats when so many of us would not even be alive today if the vision and foresight had not been there in the beginning. And I want to remind you of something about the Affordable Care Act, which they still want to call Obamacare rather than the Affordable Care Act. One of the reasons that hospitals are so reluctant to let you go home without validating that you're going to have the proper care or home nurse visitation is because under the Affordable Care Act, if you are returned to the hospital is penalized. And why did they put that provision there? Because there were people who were sick that were being sent home. And one of the most egregious situations involved a lady that was at a hospital and it was cold in the wintertime and she was ill. And they looked at her and told her she was okay to go home. And she went outside and sat on a bench waiting for a bus because she didn't have any money and froze to death and died. And so now we're making sure that we don't have those kind of things. So, folks, what happened yesterday is always connected to what's going on today. And I'm not trying to just burden you down in history because I want solutions. But I think if you are reminded of how people died and suffered for us to have the rights that we take for granted, it should stir in you a sense of accountability and a desire to do your share moving forward.
Well, Dr. Warren, many times we don't feel that there's an issue until it comes knocking at our door. And now we have to say that it's knocking at all of our doors. It is impacting the whole entire country. If you have a car,
Yes.
Your gas allotment. I remember I could fill up my car for $55. Now I'm spending in my sedan, I'm spending almost $110 every fill up. And so that is a significant increase. That's over 50% increase. And that's a great impact on your finances. It costs in electricity, it costs in oil, it costs in everything. Housing in California is out of this world. But think about the housing crisis that we have in our city. You couple that with food prices going up and being astronomical. So now what used to be handled with the current amount of money that we have now is being doubled. And we still have the question, are you better off today than you were when before Donald Trump was elected? And no one can say that they are unless they are part of that 2% of the very, very wealthy that have the insider trader information where they're able to move and know what's going to happen before it happens and break every law in the book. But let's say, hey, I was
Well, you know what, Dr. Thompson, the real people, they don't even want to hear the questions because the question is ridiculous. When you look at the homelessness, there are more seniors that are without housing. And we're talking about spending more money for the homeless, but we're not addressing the problem in the one place that we could make a difference. And that one area is putting some controls on landlords, putting some controls on security deposits and rent control. And they don't want it. And, we got that fake Tenant Protection Act that the mayor and them did almost 2 years ago. it's really a joke because we still have vacant units and more coming online. And what should happen is we should have a tax that says that if a facility or unit is empty for more than 12 months, then there should be a tax placed on that unit so that the developer or the landlord or who the owners are, it becomes in their best interest to do something, even if it means renting it out. And we need to put controls over security deposits and all of those things that other cities have done something about. But we can't seem to get in place in San Diego because too many of our judges are landlords.
Yeah. And I think, Dr. Warren, I think one of the biggest things is that I don't think it's just should be on the renting property of homes. I think it should also be on the rental properties of businesses, because there are a lot of people that are coming in and they're buying up businesses and they're building more businesses or business places, but they're leaving them vacant because they're so high, or they're speculating that, okay, because of development that's happening over here, when your lease is up, I'm going to triple your rent, knowing that it's going to move you out. And so we see a lot of small businesses not making it right now because of there's no rent control in any of those areas. But I guarantee you, if we put a tax, if we say that if your space stays vacant more than 1 year, you're going to receive a tax instead of a credit.
Well, let's two things. Let's look at that for a moment, Dr. Thompson, because right now on the November ballot, we are electing city council members in the even number districts 2, 4, 6, and 8. And the question that should be raised in each of those 4 districts is, where do you stand in terms of rent control, in terms of, they threw a bone at the folks recently saying that landlords who evict people because they want to renovate and they're making do with little renovation, and then they're raising the rents. They're trying to put a stop to it. But all over San Diego, I see 300 and 400 unit facilities going up, and the average person cannot afford them. A 3-bedroom apartment, which people need who have children, starting at maybe $4,000 a month. The Housing Commission doing Section 8 has been under attack by HUD. And we did stories earlier this year, and we're about to do more again, because they're being forced to raise the contributing amount of rent on the people that are getting Section 8, or they're going to have to cut them. And in cities like LA, they have a 10-year waiting list for Section 8 with 70 or 80,000 people looking for housing. And so all of this gets to be very important, and we should not be looking at an election without looking at what are we going to do about the housing, and when are we going to start dealing with the landlords and the apartment association owners who have the lobbyists and who are greasing the skids of the people on the city council. Perfect example of that was what happened with footnote 7. And that led to the challenge that we now have of Martha Abraham against Henry Foster, because we found in the records that Henry and Monica kind of turned their back when the footnote provision was being done. 20,000 square feet was the amount of room required in other parts of the city. But when it got to Encanto, it was reduced to 7,000, which meant that density could be increased. And we see apartments being stuffed on top of each other as we're beginning to ghettoize the very communities that we wanted to keep safe.
Well, Dr. One of the questions that I would have, and as a homeowner, as people that own property, how is it, and this has been my biggest question, how is it that property has come available in what we call a single housing or single family residential area, but they're being allowed to build humongously large 6, 7, 8-story apartment complexes next to a 1-story house? And on one side over there off of Euclid, I see that there is this big old apartment building, a little bitty house in the middle, and then another big old apartment building, almost literally trying to force them out, because it's now, you don't have any privacy. You don't have any.
I can tell you how it happens, Dr. Thompson. And this was also the reason for my editorial. because each of these communities have planning committees. All right. And the planning groups are the ones that these developers take their plans to and their blueprints. And when those meetings take place, 9 out of 10 of those meetings do not have anybody in the room other than the commissioners and the developers and their whole team of people lying to folks about how great it's going to be for everyone. And by the time people catch on, like with footnote 7, the deal is done. The city council is weak. The city council, I used to teach government contracts. I've never seen a government contract that didn't have a provision for the government to get out of it if it wanted to. All right. And I do not understand the weakness of the people who control this city. The city attorney's office is a joke. Every time they get a serious issue, they got to go and hire outside counsel. Well, why are we paying all these people that work there? And we remember Myra Elliott, who is on the ballot now to go to the assembly. We remember that when she was challenged some years ago, after she got elected city attorney, and she was asked who she worked for, she said she worked for the city council and for the mayor. But it was the people that elected her. So when do you work for the people? All right. And so people, this is what happens when you don't vote. Mm-hmm. This is what happens when you don't read, when you don't register, when you don't ask questions. This is what we get. And after we get screwed, we don't have people in office who have the balls to go back and make a correction and change what's already been done wrong.
And again, I'm going to ask these questions because, I look at footnote 7, I look at the Encanto area, I look at the towers that have been there since I've been alive, and from what I understood, it was supposed to be a park. How did we lose the park and went into construction of housing?
Because the master plan is always being revised, and people take sections of it that they want changed. They go and they buy off the planning group. And I've been in some of the planning group meetings for footnote, the people out of Encanto. And it's always very interesting that they got a little network of folks that really think this is really a good idea and they're really fighting for it. What you ought to be asking yourself is, what are they getting? How much are they being paid? How are they being paid? Mm-hmm. Okay? Because they don't care that much about the community that they live in, or maybe they're getting enough out of it to move away and leave the people there carrying the bag. And so we need to ask questions. In Washington, D.C., I want to tell you, I was reading a case recently, and it reminded me, when I was an elected official in D.C., Congress did an experiment through HUD with a thing called neighborhood commissioners, neighborhood advisory commissions. That's what they were. Neighborhood NAC, neighborhood advisory commissions, and they were based on the census tract. And within the census tract, there is a subgroup of 2,000. Each census area of 2,000 people is a subtract in itself. And so what they did was they divided the city up into major areas, and then they allocated positions on the advisory neighborhood commission that were consistent with the subgroups of 2,000 each. Those people then were able to meet and bring ideas together and then take those ideas to their city council members, and those ideas got involved. This was a means of getting people involved. And George Stevens had this idea when he started organizing these community groups. In every group, a neighborhood group where people were talking and explaining. But most of us don't want to go out in the evening. Most of us don't want to do anything other than kick back and relax in the backyard or barbecue or rest. And yet, when you're back east in cities, in urban areas, the other part of the city comes alive after 5 o'clock. Mm-hmm. There's a whole government that is implemented. People are meeting, they're planning, they're making sacrifices, they're doing things, they're protecting their interests in terms of how they live. They're not waiting until something comes up for a vote when it's too late because everybody's been bought and paid for.
Dr. Warren, one of the things that I'm troubled, and I'm troubled throughout our whole entire city, and that is with the traffic grid and the backlog of traffic throughout, especially in our community, but really citywide. I'm still not getting this whole thing about narrowing streets. I look at even where they're talking about building these houses in Encanto, the gridlock that they already have there, you know, but I'm not hearing of any real infrastructure of widening the streets. Do they even have the space to widen the streets? How are they going to handle and watch this, with more people in gridlock and sitting, that means more carbon dioxide, more pollutants, and everything else. So it literally is going to be an environmental hazard unless they literally have a plan to move traffic a different way.
Well, they don't, Dr. Thompson. And you raise a very important question, because one of the things in our urban centers where people are driving fewer cars, the public transportation system has been overall and improved and increased. And so there's more availability. Remember, when we first started putting the trolley in place here, the trolley stopped running at 11 o'clock. Mm-hmm. And buses were slowed down on the weekend. When people want to get to church and use a bus, you got to take 2 hours to wait for your bus to get to church, because they didn't cut back services on Sunday. And so, and now you got people, if you notice, it's the permitting. We never really addressed permits. Mm-hmm. And even after they had the devastating floods that went through parts of the community, they were supposed to make permitting easy so people could strip and rebuild their homes. They never did. They never got it to be where it should be. We are allowing folks to narrow our streets, to put these islands in, to reduce us to one lane. At the same time, we have not increased public transportation, mm-hmm. and the citizens are not speaking out. Mm-hmm. And that's the problem, because they know we're not going to say anything, so they're going to do what they want, and then it's too late.
Well, Dr. Warren, I'm going to shift it just a little bit and move the geographical area down to downtown. I don't know. I don't understand, and maybe you could help me to understand this. What is going on with the former Horton Plaza? It's been sitting there too long. It was supposed to be this and supposed to be that. Are we getting ready to tear the whole thing down and start over? What is really, truly going on?
Oh, boy. And I don't know if I can give it all to you in 2 minutes, but I can tell you this. When I came to San Diego 40 years ago, they were just in the process of building Horton Plaza. And I remember being in meetings downtown where we were being promised that we were going to have jobs, and that it was going to be accessible to people and the whole bit. I can also tell you that once Horton Plaza was completed and we were having the Martin Luther King parades downtown, the people in Horton Plaza decided that they wanted to close on parade day because they didn't want all these Black folks coming into their stores. And so what they did is they shifted the parades down to Harbor Drive. And Horton Plaza never did hire people the way they said. Businesses came and they failed because they weren't promoting it. And when I tried to talk to the original operators of Horton Plaza about advertising with us and bringing people in, I was channeled to Peachtree Street in Atlanta, because the people who had the contract didn't even live here. And so the people who have bought it and are renovating it, and it's supposed to become a small tech entity, they went into a bankruptcy or foreclosure. It was being bought back, and folks are trying to get it up. And then there was issues with the park and the theater and all of those pieces that are going on down there. And so it was never intended to return to serving people. It was intended to be a small Silicon Valley operation with all kinds of activities for, I hate to use the term, the rich and famous, but for those who were techies and wanted to be the ones to buy those new housing units downtown. Mm-hmm.
Well, and this seems like, piss poor planning. And basically, at the end of the day, they have a lot of vacancies downtown. They have this big property downtown that is not being used. It has really, truly become an eyesore. And ultimately, someone has to answer for it.
Well, yeah, but they can get away with not answering. I mean, East Village, they're doing some things. You got that new facility going in down there, East Village Greens, and it's going to be pretty and nice. And the housing has gone up over there in Logan Heights, and they really built the community. It's no longer the eyesore that it used to be. Um, but again, most of us are not concerned beyond ourselves.
Yeah.
And see, districts 4 and 8 are so closely joined that those members of the council should be pulling together.
Yeah.
And 4 and 8 are still also closely joined, and the supervisorial district 4 should be pulling together, but we're not doing it.
Yeah.
And nobody is helping us do it. And we are too busy trying to survive with food, gas, and housing to take this matter on.
Yes. Well, with that being said, Dr. Warren, we have come to the end of the show. This is from the desk of the editor with Dr. John Warren. We want to encourage you all to tap in, download the GLD Radio app, the Voice and Viewpoint app, and the paper comes out tomorrow. And so make sure you get a hard copy. Also realize that it is online digitally for free at the San Diego Voice and Viewpoint website, and continue to support until next time.
Until next time, we will be here. We welcome your emails and your concerns. Not only do we publish the paper, but we also do newsletters and news bites all during the week. So it's not just once a week thing. We're there. If it comes up, we're talking about it. Thank you.